Welcome back to Roaming with Restless Women. I'm excited today to have an author with us who has explored the generations of women who've come before her in her book. I'm excited to introduce her to you. Her name is Ching Sun Stubis, and she is a newspaper and magazine columnist, a poet, and an author of the award-winning historical saga Once Our Lives, the remarkable true story of four generations of Chinese women who survived war, revolution, and the eerie power of an ancient superstition. Can't wait to hear more about that. Born in the squalor of a Shanghai shanty town, Qing overcame poverty, starvation, and the political persecution of her family to win admission to a prestigious Chinese university and then immigrate to the United States, where she became a successful writer. She has over 200 published works, and she strives to uplift women and strengthen the bonds of understanding and humanity that connect us all. Welcome to the program, Ching. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for having me on your very, very meaningful, important platform.
Well, thank you. I do like to share women's wisdom, and we all have it, no matter how old we are as women. So, I like to talk to women about their past experiences and their lives. So, tell me a little bit about some of the early struggles that inspired your books.
Oh, Lord, I have to go all the way back for more than 6 decades. Born in a shanty town, as you mentioned, and I was kept in the crib for the first 2 years of my life because my father was in a bamboo forest far away, and my mother, who was at home taking care of my older sister and me, and she had to go to work because there was not enough to feed us, unfortunately, and I was left in the crib. And it was not until I was about 2 years old, and she wanted me take me to the government sponsored nursery did she realize that the people they thought I was sick. I would never be able to walk. I would never be able to talk, and then never be able to even sit. So she took me, the sickly child, back home, quit her job, and tried in all ways so we could survive. And now, so my life didn't start off very well. And at the time, it was also 3 years of Chinese famine, which killed somewhere between 30 to 50 million people. Imagine that amount of people died of starvation all over the country. So I
Oh,
count myself as extremely lucky that I even survived under the circumstance. But I didn't know that my furious, brave mother sold her last gold watch, really traded it with a pharmacist for calcium pills and fish oil. And she fed me, she took care of me, and so that I gradually recovered and it started to grow. I mean, essentially, the first 2 years of my life, I was like a newborn because I was never really being taken care of besides the food. And
mm.
she left me. I described in detail in my book how I essentially slept in my lay down in the pool of whatever things that I produced until she got home. And then she would change me and clean me and took care of me. And so, yeah, my life didn't start out very well. But, and then in the my mother ended up having four little girls. We never had a brother, even though my father was a firstborn son and is supposed to have boys. And because of that, my mother and four little girls that she had were somehow in a very inferior position. We
Mm.
never were considered to be part of the family. And besides the fact that my mother was given away as a little girl, and so her own birth family didn't count her as part of the family, and her adoptive family was very, very small. The reason why they wanted her, so we practiced practically. We had a gazillion uncles and aunts, and we all at the same time. We had my father was imprisoned. My mother had no job. She was home with four little girls. So we were constantly on the brink of starvation. And the danger was just everywhere. We did not know where our father was, the worry. And even one day when I was a very small girl, maybe about a seven, my older sister was nine, my younger sister was five, and then we had a newborn little sister. My mother disappeared for a whole day. She didn't come back, and my older sister prepared us watery rice, essentially pour whatever the hot water from the thermos into some stale rice and with pickles and tried to feed us until everything grew dark and there was no one there. And my mother, we did not know where our mother was. We hid behind the door of our room. It only was a one room house. And we all fell asleep. And until the next day, miraculously found ourselves in bed, tucked in inside our quilt. And our mother came back. I did not know when or what, but she really did not want to live anymore. She was wandering all over the city, thinking about a way of ending her life.
Oh,
But
goodness.
because she was a baptized, yeah, she was a baptized Christian. So she somehow, there was a voice telling her that she couldn't kill herself because had she done so, she would never be able to go to heaven. So that was the
Mm.
only reason that took her back home to us, and we didn't lose our mother. Now, it took many, many years before I learned because even though I was a tiny child, it was a mystery to me, like what happened to our mother. So throughout the years in my life, we learned to fend ourselves. We always knew our world was small. Our world was our mother and four of the little girls. And our world was, my mother told us, always do things, find ways to make life better, which included drawing pictures with crayons, reading the books, and go out to the garbage dump looking for chocolate nuts that are unburned still and take home so we would be able to cook in the backyard. And even after we had a gas line, we frequently could not use the gas line because we had no money to pay for the gas. We had a bare light bulb hanging above our in the ceiling above us, but when it grew dark, we couldn't turn on that light because we couldn't afford to pay for electricity. You know, when my father's wage was being cut off, when he was in the prison, on and off for 7 years during Cultural Revolution from 1968 to 1975. It was very, very hard for us. Um,
So he was
the
a political
survival,
prisoner?
yes, he was, said that he was anti-cultural revolution and said that he had to confess how he said bad things about Mao Zedong, how all the horrible things, whatever they made him admit, which he never did. So he was a very brave, strong man. So he refused to say things that he never did, which, of course, caused a lot of problem for us as a
Mm.
little family, whether or not he admitted or not. But we were in deep trouble. So we always knew our life was a constant struggle. In some ways, there was always restless energy. Some restless energy was good. Some were very, very bad because we had worries, worry about we could survive. We were freezing cold. We were
Mm.
hungry. People would not look at you. People would just literally those people who you knew, they would cast their eyes down toward the ground and walk by you without as if they did not know you. I was abused even by my classmates who would use a slingshot in the back of the classroom, put a mud pellet on it, and then shoot me on my head. The pain and the mud that stuck in my hair. And there are a lot of horrible things that happened in my life. But one thing kept us going. My mother always gave us the positivity was that we should study well, always be the best students. And that was my pride. I They may have shining watches on their wrist, shining shoes, and I was the one who was patched clothes and with a starving stomach. But I always could perform better than they could on the tests. And that kind of brought me, to
And that's how you were
where I am
able to get,
today.
and that's how you were able to get to the university you mentioned in your bio. So,
Yes, yes.
so when you got to the university, what kind of struggles did you face there?
Oh, I luckily I was admitted to the second best foreign languages. And had I been admitted anywhere else, my mother confessed that she couldn't even buy me a train ticket to get me there.
Oh,
The
yeah.
government gave, yeah, yeah, I couldn't have. The government gave me a stipend, which was enough to buy food and books for myself at a time when China just recovered its normal institutions of high learning. Um, it was pretty much like a military school because
Hmm.
you have dormitories that were fashioned after they were built in the 1950s, so they were very much like the Russian style, those brick two-story
Yeah.
buildings, and each room would host about 7, 8 students. Men and women were separated. We were forbidden to date. So we had one classroom. It was like a high school. One classroom, or maybe elementary school in America, one classroom that we stayed for 4 years. And the different
Wow.
teachers would come into the class to teach. It was only until the third and fourth year in college we were allowed to have selectives. So I studied, Bible literature. I studied Shakespeare, and we had foreign teachers from United States, England, and different places. And but yeah, I had a lot of fear because I did not want to work with foreigners because I felt my father was a political prisoner. I was worried that some people may do horrible harms to me. So at the same
Mm.
time, I studied so hard. I had so much energy because I knew that opportunity was a hard fought opportunity. Where I was, it was filled with gold. We had a library filled with old English literature. The books were yellow paged books, leather bound, dust filled, and you could really study. You read, of human bondage, Jack London, Martin Eden. You read Jane Eyre. You just had anything, Chaucer, Spencer, Milton, Shakespeare.
Nice.
Even though
Yeah.
I didn't understand all the words they were saying, in the beginning, but the 4 years was not a long time to be a person who knew little English to graduate and with a degree of 19th century English literature. And by this day, I memorized, Shakespeare's sonnets, Robert Burns,
Uh-huh.
Longfellow, and they're staying with me for life. They give me energy and they make me romantic, have a sense of the world in a way that I never had ever foreseen in my life as a little girl. So there was a lot. That was a
So,
lot.
when did you actually immigrate to the United States then?
It was 1989. I worked in China for 7 years as a tour guide for the Americans that were visiting China. And the 7 years that I spent making money, being the only breadwinner for the family, because
Mm.
my father was sent to prison again for another 7 years. Only this time, the accusation was the opposite. He was accused being for cultural revolution and sent to the prison. after the revolution was over. So between 1982 to 1989. And 1982 was the year I graduated from college and got my job. So I worked for the family. Essentially, I was the father. I was my mother's friend. I was a mother to my sisters. I kept the family going. And then my father came out of prison in 1989. And I decided that I was 29 years old. It was time for me to see the world and do something. I had this restless energy inside me. I wanted to, I have done so much. I have seen so much around me. And all the Americans kept on telling me that I should go and visit America. America would welcome me. I can learn new things. So I applied for college in Arizona. So I ended up in University of Arizona, studied a communications program, fell in love with a musician and a man who graduated from Juilliard for classical. He was a classical trained pianist and who was extremely good at Chopin. And so, the romantic notion of my literature, the romantic music, it kind of bound us together. So I ended up staying in America, raising a family of two children. And I really understand how difficult it was to become an immigrant because I felt that my family is on the other side of the ocean. When I needed help, like I was sick, my kids were little, and no one would bring me a bowl of soup. My husband was working so hard and in a not for profit sector. We are kind of family, want to be the good deed doers. So I encouraged him to pursue his own passion. So we kind of are hanging together, raising a family, reading to our kids. And for the first time in my life, I felt that I lived a childhood through my children. I realized that when I was growing up, it was no childhood, and I never
Yeah.
really was a child. So with bookcases filled with the little books for the kids, reading them to them in bed, playing jigsaw puzzles on the floor, taking to them to the parks, hearing them giggling and making them food. It made me really feel that I have a wholesome life by living through life again through the little ones that I have so created. So, yeah, I would say that I've gone through so much and I
Mm.
always managed being strong women. One thing get us going is we move forward. We don't look back because when you look back, you'll be scared thinking about someone scaling a mountain. The
Yeah.
higher cliff you climb, the less you want to look back. Because
Right.
when you look back, you will be scared about how far you have gone. So you just want to keep on going up to the summit, go
Hmm.
upwards. And that kind of energy got me going. And until my parents passed away on the other side of the earth. And I was heartbroken. I was in such grief. I almost felt that I was in a clinical depression and couldn't pull myself out. And my husband told me, he was very, very busy at work. So, being the vice president of a major not for profit organization, he said, why don't you, turn to seek for professional help? And I was saying to myself, like, who would understand me? I mean, it would take me months just to tell the story of my life. It was not
Hmm.
going to, no one was going to pull me out of it. The wisdom came from my little kid, my little boy, who at the time was just about entering the elementary school. And he said, Mom, he said, you cannot really lose your parents. You can think about them, you can dream about them, and when you go to sleep, and they will come back to you, and you can stay with them. And I felt that every night I just wished that I would dream about them. Even when I wasn't dreaming, I just tried to think back about our lives
Mm-hmm.
together,
Mm-hmm.
through the hardship and all the laughters, the love, the words of wisdom from my mother. And I just was in a deep trance, in a sense, even when I was wide awake of the
Mm-hmm.
past of my life. And then I felt it was partially therapeutic that I should write down the stories. And I literally wrote them down with a pen and the drops of tears on pieces of
Mm-hmm.
paper. And it took me a while. I got a stack of notebooks filled with random stories. And they were the swatches of my life, of my existence. And I felt that I want to compile them together so that my children one day would learn. I wrote everything in English because my kids are not bilingual with Chinese. They're more French and English. So I wanted them to be able to learn about my past, the things that no one, no one would imagine that people would have lived through. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
reason when people read my books, so many of them said that my books, when they read my book, they felt they're reading fictional stories, which
Yeah.
drives me crazy. I'm like, no, they're not
Yeah.
fictional. They are the real life stories. I,
Well, you
I
mentioned
felt
you
it's the
mentioned
same thing like Anne's diary.
you mentioned four
Yes,
generations of women.
yes.
So it's you and your
Mm-hmm,
mother and your grandmother and then her
mm-hmm.
mother? Okay. So you tell all of
Yes,
those
yes.
stories in this book. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Mm-hmm. Because a lot of stories my mother told me, I stayed with her for almost 29 years. And we often slept on the same bed. And at the time, there was no television. And even
Mm-hmm.
for a little broken radio we had, we didn't have money to buy the battery for it. So the entertainment was mostly conversations. We would really chit chat until we hear the story and fall asleep. So there are a lot of stories she told about her parents, how she was adopted, who were my adoptive grandparents, who were my birth grandparents, and my father's parents' stories that my father told her and she would tell us, and about her life, how she grew up as a little
Wow.
girl, at one time very pampered, because my grandfather, the adoptive grandfather, was the general manager of a watch and a clock shop in the older British section, a very fancy street called 19 Road. The west of it is called the Bubbling Whale Road, because I was a tour guide, so I know all the names. The east
Yeah.
side of it is called the 19 Road. Yeah. And my grandfather was the general manager of that shop owned by his cousin. And it was called the Wellington Watch and Clock Shop. So she
Nice.
lived on that street as well. My grandfather paid the rent with gold, and then they moved to the French Quarter, the Lafayette Street, and
Mm.
so we knew all the things like I knew her life and her parents' life, and then of course certain part of the books, it's about my own upbringing, um, what I saw when I was growing up, and so yes, it's four generations of
Wow.
life that we lived
So,
through.
what is the superstition that you mentioned?
The superstition is actually deeply embedded in Buddhism,
Okay.
that people believe in reincarnation
Mm-hmm.
and believe in wandering spirits. So when you see people, it doesn't necessarily mean they're real people. The West would call apprehensions. But anyway, I never really believed in that story when my grandmother, my father's mother, told me initially when I was a little girl, because she believed that when she was pregnant with my father, when she was only 19 years old in a fishing village, and there was no doctors. And when she was very pregnant, someone knocked on her door. Normally, the servants, the maids would be opening the door because she was married to my father's family, was very wealthy at the time. But she opened it, it happened to open it, and there was this beggar begging for food. Now, my grandmother thought, in her delicate position, doing good deeds would be benefiting herself, the safety of her life and her baby's life. So she religiously fed old beggar, and she fed him for exactly 7 days before he disappeared. And on the same day, he never came back. My father was born. And a few months later, she was expecting to feed him again, but he never came back. She felt almost a presence of blessing that her life and her child's life was safe until one day she looked at the baby. She felt it as if in my father's eyes, she could see the beggar, the spirit
Oh,
of the beggar.
wow.
And she realized the beggar was no person. It was an apprehension. It was what we call wandering spirit, wandering around in search for a host. And he liked what my grandmother did. He jumped into my father. So my father came out as her son plus more. The spirit was
Wow.
inside my father.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I it was crazy. I never believed it. My father used to laugh if I asked him questions until the very, very end of the book. How my grandmother, my father, and a beggar had a rendezvous.
Oh,
And actually happened. My grandmother and my father died within a couple hours of each other, literally on the same day, 19 years apart. They died on the same day. And when I thought back of all things, looking at the swatches of my stories of all different lives, I decided that I had to use it as the beginning and the end of the story. And not that I ever loved my grandmother. My grandmother looked down upon us and she hated us because we were a bunch of girls. She had my father, who was the firstborn son, firstborn grandson. So she kept the family honor. And my mother did not. So, and she believed that the four girls almost was like a curse that brought on by the beggar. So we were not exactly welcomed and liked in a family. So that
wow.
made it very, very hard. It took me 20 years to write this book for the very reason I had to untangle all my emotions. And in the very end, the grandmother I hated became the leading character of my book
Oh, wow.
because I forgave her because life made it so. Religious beliefs made it so. The hard circumstances made it so. History made it so. And I had to take it as it was.
Hmm.
And in some ways, the toughness, all the stony fields that I had to walk through, the hot charcoals I had to step on and walk through all my life, made me strong, made me who I am today. I have been tempered. I have been kind of, in a way, made into who I am by my past.
Hmm.
So at the time, life was unbearable, whether it's the stomach knot inside me or the extreme anxiety inside my heart or the worries or the tears. But all these things people usually avert to, and I had just too much of everything, made I am who I am today, and made me
Yes.
strong, made me see more, made me deeply humane.
And appreciative and grateful.
Thank you. So I
Hmm.
think that I hope my book, my story, will inspire generations of more women to understand the life. To it's like you want to hear the stories of those who have climbed the Himalayas, the Everest, and reached the peak. But this, for me, is that I reached the peak of hardships of life of the Everest. So I
Yes.
felt that I hope that through it and through it all, through my words, I will be able to build a bridge of humanity and help more people to understand how to be deeply humane and
Yes.
how to keep on trying and fighting. And there's always an end of the tunnel. There's always light at the end of a tunnel. That's what I feel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I have
Thank
three
you.
I have three questions that I ask at the end of every interview. So, my first one is if you could close your eyes and tell me what you see in your mind's eye when I say wise woman.
I see you. I see me.
Yes.
I see I see inside every woman. I see that we are collecting wisdom inside ourselves through what we do, what we see, what we learn. And we all can be that wise woman if we do not just let the things go, ignore what we should have learned through everyday life, through our eyes, through those who are kind to us, through those who have gone through everything, that would make us all a wise woman.
That's beautiful. Where do you like to roam?
I like to roam most of all in my imagination. Ever since I was a child, when I was worried and my father did not know where my father was, I was sitting on this little bamboo chair and look upwards at the clouds that floated by me. I would imagine what those clouds were and imagine where they were heading to. I like to roam these days in imagination as well. When I wake up early in the morning, long before I put on my clothes and close the door and leave the house, I was roaming in my imagination, looking at a ceiling fan, thinking about the things, think about the people from the past, the present, what I could be doing. I felt that my mind was always roaming. Now, besides
Yes.
that, physically, I love to have my feet touch the grass. I feel the crunchiness of the dry leaves in the fall. I felt that the sound we can hear when we roam, it gives us a very, it's like the music to our ears, gives us a very real sense of feeling.
Mhm.
And I enjoy that very much.
Oh, that's beautiful too. And here's my final question. What makes you restless in a good way? You talked about being restless quite a bit when we were discussing your early life. So tell me about how restlessness is a positive in your life.
Restlessness is extremely positive. I think that it's almost like a boiling water. You touch, make you jump, and makes you really have a heightened sense. Otherwise, it's like a lukewarm. It's not too hot.
Mhm.
It's not too cold. You almost kind of feeling like falling asleep, getting into
Mm.
a zombie state. When you are restless, you are kind of propelled by this energy. And when the energy is positive, you can become very productive. I
Yes.
often feel restless. I think older I get, the more restless I get because I worry how much more time do I have here?
Yes.
How much I want to do? How much I fulfill? So there is a lot of restless energy inside of me, and I am working on a fiction right now, a book, and I'm
Very
doing
cool.
like a second, third editing about women. Again, I'm just obsessed. I was never a feminist in my life, but now I feel I'm obsessed about the women's lives and, knowing how much we share the burden of lives and how
Yeah.
much we create. Doesn't matter what life, it's called a human, it's created by a woman. And whether the man who is disrespectful to women or respectful, they all created once by a woman. So I'm very obsessed by women and their lives. So about these days in China, as the country goes through dramatic, extremely rapid, dramatic not political, but cultural, historical, and also ideological in a sense. People turn a lot more toward the finance, economical reforms and stuff. And women, both urban and rural women, how their lives changed, how they're
Hmm.
coping, old and young, and with the fluidity, finally, of the population. China used to be where you were born, where you were supposed to die, you essentially in the
Hmm.
same house. How these people now all become migrants around the country and in search of opportunities. People, it's within the same border, so there are no immigrants. They are really migrants, but they some of them come from poor areas to the rich areas to become nannies, housekeepers, house cleaners, doing sanitation, construction, making money to be sent back home because what they can make through their hard work, probably 1 month is what they could get for a whole year where they came
Mm.
from. So that's the motive, the incentives, but certainly changes a lot about the what people see, what people do, and within the country, used to be so stable. So I am just creating this story, putting all sorts of characters into it, and I'm really having fun because I feel like I am the master now in control of their fates, other
There we
than
go.
writing a
Yes.
memoir that I had no control. I was a pure observer. Even of my own life, I was only an observer. So that's the big difference between writing fiction and nonfiction. So a lot of people now write somewhere in between,
Yeah.
partially memoirish, partially fictional to create a life. But I really feel so sorry for the readers more these days because how can they tell what is really real and not real and to believe in those things? So, as a reader, you really, really need to be smart because otherwise, you may learn totally fictional things and thought
Yeah.
actually it happened. And as a result of it, I'm kind of very much like either I would write essays and write about my past, memoir, or I'm just going to write, say, like it's pure fictional, I made it all up. So,
Yeah.
but, we all have different ideas. So that's, kind of fun. And sometimes when I wake up in the early morning, roaming in my imagination, I really enjoy writing poems. I've actually written like something like 60, 80 poems, just
Oh.
thinking about the life, thinking about, because I feel like it's like making little sketches. which I'm enjoying
Yeah.
very much. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Ching, for being on the show. Folks, I'm going to put her link to go and find her book. And Ching, if you could send me that link so that people can go out and check out your book. It's called Once Our Lives. And when she comes out with her fictional book, hopefully you'll be able to see it at the same place.
Yeah, yeah. I actually have been having a lot of fun. Actually, I join book clubs, even on Zoom. For
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's interested, a group of people reading my book, they write to me and they invite me to join, and I would talk about if people have questions on the stories and whatever not. And when it's local, I even actually bring a bottle of wine, some sort of treats, and enjoying in people's homes and talk about my book. And I felt that I have made so many great friends like that. The
Yes.
the book last year, of all the honors awards I have received last year, it was um, named as a finalist for the Rubery Award, which was what you call a version of for for all the what you call men book awards for the independent publishers. So I felt very very honored
Nice.
in England.
Yes.
Yeah. So I really felt that with all the awards and achievements, people gave the acknowledgement to my book, and so I will just keep on roaming. I will keep on being restless and
That's how you do
stir up
it.
all the positivity, the positive energies, and hopefully, yes, hopefully that's the way, the shining path that I will be following.
Very good. Well, thank you for being on the episode. I really appreciate it. And folks, make sure you check out the show notes. I'll put the link down below. Thank you so much, and we'll see you the next time. Julie Noonan here. Thank you so much for listening to Roaming with Restless Women. If you're a successful senior woman leader who would like to be on this program, please visit podcast.intuitivewisdomcoach.com. If you enjoyed this interview, please share this episode on social media and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Your thumbs ups and reviews go a long way.